United States Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart, writing about an obscenity case, once famously said of hardcore pornography, "I know it when I see it." It can be tempting to use this as the basis for defining what makes a theme park, not hardcore pornography. We just know a theme park when we see one. But if we're to talk about theme parks as more than a base form of entertainment, and instead assess them as a form of art, akin to theater, movies, or video games, we must be able to define what makes a theme park a theme park. Let's start with a few definitions from around the web that seem reliable. Google and the Oxford English Dictionary define a theme park as, quote, an amusement park with a unifying setting or idea. Well, that's helpful. Now all we need to do is define an amusement park. If we insert Google's definition of amusement park, our definition of theme park becomes a large outdoor area with fairground rides, shows, refreshments, games of chance or skill, and other entertainments with a unifying setting or idea. Actually, that's a start. The Cambridge English Dictionary says a theme park is, quote, a large permanent area for public entertainment with entertaining activities and big machines to ride on or play games on, restaurants, etc., sometimes all connected with a single subject. Already, our definitions have problems. The first definition requires an outdoor area, and both require the space occupied by the park to be large. This leaves experiences like Disney Quest, Wanda Movie Park, and other small or indoor ventures out of consideration. Besides, how do we define large? Looking at most of the Disney parks, especially those in the US, the Universal parks in the US, the first two Six Flags parks in Texas and Georgia, and several of the most popular European parks, we see a minimum of around 100 acres. But 3 Disney parks, including the Castle Park in Hong Kong, all fall well short of 100 acres. They may be criticized for being only half-day parks, but no one seems to argue they aren't theme parks. There are worse issues with our baseline definitions. Both seem to suggest only a singular theme can cover a theme park. Google says theme parks have a unifying setting or idea. The Cambridge definition does qualify itself with sometimes, but it still says a single subject. But in the real world, places that are undisputedly theme parks tend to contain a series of lands, each with its own unified setting. We'll return to the question of how many themes or lands a park needs to be a theme park later on. For now, it's enough to say that we need a better definition than the ones we have. One place both the Google/OED and the Cambridge definitions agree is that theme parks are about enjoyment. Both also include the idea of large mechanized rides, food service, and other forms of entertainment. They both raise some interesting questions as well. Does a theme park need all of these, or can it lack some while having others? To be more explicit, does a theme park need rides? We'll return to some of these questions later. Let's begin building our own definition for a theme park with the easier second part of our term, a park. Parks come in all shapes, sizes, and locations. Despite their differences, there are a few things we can say of all parks. First, they are open to the public, even if that requires an entrance fee or a suggested donation. Also, though their intent may be subjective to their users, these are recreational spaces. Parks are not intended for work. We're obviously not including the office park or industrial park versions of the word here. They are also open pedestrian spaces. Traffic flow is not restricted, nor does it flow in a single direction. This last point will be important later for helping differentiate between a themed park and an extremely large themed attraction or experience. Our definition of theme park should include these aspects universal to other forms of parks. A theme park, therefore, is a recreational public space intended for entertainment with a free flow of traffic. Obviously, this definition is still incomplete. To complete it, we need to turn to the sticky issue of theming. Theme parks take techniques from live theater and stage magic, television and film production, and video games, utilizing various effects to create an illusion of immersion for guests. When we talk about themed elements of a park or attraction, what we're really talking about is how these tricks from other fields are used. Set dressing, projections, interactive elements, and live actors are all common, with the largest enterprises, like the Disney and Universal parks, utilizing advanced R&D to implement cutting-edge technologies like robots and artificial intelligence. For our purposes here, we will call every piece of design intended to increase guest immersion theming. Spend any time in the online theme park community and you will inevitably come across this view, not endorsed by the Theme Parchive. Six Flags, pick one, or Cedar Point, or any other similar park, is not a theme park. They are amusement parks, making the barest effort towards themed attractions to justify calling themselves by the more impressive theme park moniker. Now, to be fair, this is a bit like saying a low-budget, independent sci-fi movie isn't really a good movie because it doesn't have the best special effects. But it does kind of have a kernel of truth to it. What is the threshold of theming to be a theme park? We here at the Theme Parchive do not have the answer to this question. In a way, it will be subjective for everyone. A simple cutout of Superman characters may be enough theming for a roller coaster, or it may not. Like all art, the effectiveness is in the eye of the beholder. If the cutout moves you, if they evoke a positive emotional response, then the theming works. For you. Expectations matter a great deal here, and different companies, and by extension different parks, will each have their own levels of expectations attached. Those cutouts may work for Six Flags on a Superman roller coaster, but an equivalent setup outside a Marvel dark ride in a Disney park, might not. Of course, this kind of relativism does nothing to advance our efforts to define theme parks. If we say any attempt at theming is valid, then we risk devaluing our definition from the start. But let's dissect what makes something work for one park while something similar fails in another. Imagine we own a hypothetical generic amusement park. We have a couple small roller coasters, a log flume, a haunted house, dark ride, and a handful of fairground flats. We have no budget, but want to convert ourselves to a theme park. We rename some of the attractions, maybe shift some of the flats around, and come up with different lands for our park. Our only effort to theme any of the areas, aside from renaming things, is to put a few signs around the park directing guests to our different lands. Were we successful? Is our amusement park now a bona fide theme park? We've established that the success of attempted theming is subjective, and a large part of that is expectation. If our hypothetical park's budget was truly zero, meaning we actually went into debt, moving our rides, changing their names, and putting up new signs, our effort could be considered a success. Then again, if we're raking in millions of insert local currency in profits, but spend none of it to increase the immersive experience of our new lands, we might rightly be accused of being a theme park, in name only. Expectations of our theming have to match our budget, and unfortunately for smaller ventures, the bar, set by the Disney and Universal parks, skews guest expectations way higher than they otherwise might be. There are other factors that influence the effectiveness of theming as well. Standing in a crowded walkway with hundreds of other people milling about can break the illusion of being in an Old West ghost town. Crowd management matters. In addition, maintenance of the theming is important as parts are broken, gardens trampled, paint scuffed, and other wear and tear from crowds occurs. We could name an almost infinite number of yet unnamed factors that determine theming success. Feel free to put yours in the comments below. But one simple addition, story, can mitigate some of these problems. One aspect many forms of art tend to contain is narrative. In theme parks, narrative can come cheap. If we themed a western area around our wooden coaster and wrote a detailed backstory of the mining ghost town setting, this alone may be enough for some people to buy into the story. Even the crowds or wear and tear can be excused if this former ghost town is being revitalized by a mysterious benefactor offering tours. We may not need those tricks and illusions of stage and screen. Once the guests start to pretend with us, does the level of decoration even matter? Narrative is not necessarily a requirement, but having some form of it helps, whether in our attractions, such as shows or dark rides, or the park as a whole. More specifically, a park entirely lacking in narrative experiences will not feel as cohesive as one with various interconnected narratives covering its lands, or even the entire park. Theme parks, like video games, also have the unique distinction that they allow guests to experience a narrative as an active participant, unlike film or theater where the audience is typically passive. Our effort to define the theme part of a theme park is hampered by the association with amusement parks. The original Google OED definition reduced theme parks to merely amusement parks with a theme. While it is true that theme parks evolved out of the previous amusement park concept, it's also a bit reductionist. It's a bit like saying films are just a series of pictures strung together. That may be technically true, but the argument ignores the writing, acting, music, costumes, makeup, set design, and anything else that doesn't have to do with a camera that goes into filmmaking. There's more than reductivism here at play too. The definition conflates amusement parks and theme parks. By applying a sort of linguistic transitive property, we could arguably redefine amusement parks as theme parks lacking theming. This leads us to another unanswerable question. Does a theme park, stripped of its theming, become just an amusement park? If we took all of those artistic techniques of illusion, all the sets, animatronics, screens, projections, smoke, and mirrors out of Epcot, would it be an amusement park? Or conversely, is there something intangible, some form of alchemy, that when the attractions of an amusement park are combined with the techniques of theming, results in something entirely and utterly new and different? Obviously, we here at the Theme Parchive subscribe to this latter view. Just as combining the cinematography of film with quality acting, dialogue, and soundtrack results in a whole greater than its individual parts, theme parks transcend their amusement park origins. Of course, most modern theme parks did not start as amusement parks. They were designed with their theming and attractions intrinsically interwoven. This brings us back to the question of whether theme parks need rides. In a sense, a pure theme park would take the park portion of our definition and add the techniques of theming we've touched on. But a theme park entirely lacking any attractions feels like just a decorated garden. Rides, however, are not the only type of attraction a park could have. As both of our dictionary definitions noted, live shows and food service are common alternatives to rides. No one would call a themed restaurant, like a rainforest cafe, a theme park in itself. But such a restaurant can serve as an attraction in a larger theme park, if everything around it has a similar theme. The same could be said of live shows like Cirque du Soleil and the Blue Man Group. Haunted houses, escape rooms, VR experiences like The Void, retail and specialty shops, and nearly any standalone entertainment venue can become an attraction within a theme park. Counting only rides as attractions excludes many other forms of entertainment that serve those who don't, or more importantly, can't, ride the rides. We should note, however, that slapping down a bunch of shops and restaurants in an area does not a theme park make. Despite our broad definition of attraction and setting aside the issue of variety for a moment, Disney Springs would still fail to be a theme park. None of the restaurants, shops, shows, nor experiences connect to their surroundings or each other. But once upon a bygone age, when Tamagotchis roamed the earth, there was something, on that plot of land with a cohesive theme. Was Pleasure Island a theme park? As originally constructed, it featured a small number of attractions with nightclubs, live shows, restaurants, and bars. It covered a relatively small area, but it was public and had free-flowing pedestrian traffic. It had no big machines to ride on or games of chance or skill, but it had a theme. Pleasure Island's narrative was rich and interwoven. Every building had a story, and the clubs within had elements that connected to that invented history. On every level except rides, it was a theme park. If we had to ding Pleasure Island's theme park bona fides on anything, it would be that aforementioned issue of variety. The absence of rides notwithstanding, there was also an absence of other attractions and experiences outside of bars and clubs. As alternate attractions were added to the area, particularly with the Downtown Disney rebranding, the businesses within Pleasure Island proper evolved, and the cohesive theming was lost. It could have evolved into a nighttime, low-key theme park, but instead, Pleasure Island was absorbed, digested, and regurgitated as the current Disney Springs. A single attraction cannot a theme park make. Though it is improbable, we can imagine a single haunted house on the scale of an entire theme park. It could have several different settings with distinct yet interconnected narratives. It could cover a large area, have food or beverage carts along the route. It could meet all of the other parts of our evolving definition, but it would lack a free flow of traffic. It may be impressive, but it would still be just a themed attraction or experience. A themed restaurant, built on the same illogical scale, would have everything in our current definition and a relatively free flow of traffic, but it would lack a variety that seems necessary for a theme park. A restaurant is a singular thing. At the end of the day, a theme park is a collection of singular things, all unified under its auspices. Part of the problem with calling theme parks art is that they are not singular things. Like with Pleasure Island, all theme parks change and evolve. We tend to think of art as static, as existing in its state once complete, but that isn't true. Pigments and paint fade. Movies are re-released as director's cuts, and video games get patches and DLC. Every performance of a play is different, and even novels change with subsequent print runs. No art is truly static. The evolution of theme parks are only more visible as old attractions are demolished and grand new constructions take their place. Some amusement parks evolved into theme parks by taking their current attractions and adding a layer of storytelling and theming. By the same token, some theme parks can devolve into amusement parks, or, in the case of Pleasure Island, a generic shopping district. Theming, like the park around it, is not a static thing, and if it is not updated and refreshed along with the new attractions, it will slip further and further from success. That said, stripping theming from a purpose-built theme park where the theme is integral to every aspect of the design, like Epcot, does not always result in an amusement park, but just a failed theme park. This episode could go on for an hour as we pick apart different aspects to refine our definition. In the interest of brevity, what follows are a few questions that must be left open-ended. What of parks with a single theme, such as Santa Claus or Old West parks? Are lands with their own unique themes a necessary part of a theme park? What about historical recreations like Greenfield Village and Agrarama? At which point does education outweigh entertainment? Where do non-permanent attractions like the art exhibition Disneyland belong in the conversation? We at the Theme Parchive hope, if you've watched this far, you'll share some of your thoughts and answers in the comments. As we noted earlier, we don't have all these answers. The answers to most of these questions are subjective inherently. The same will go for our definition, but where possible, we've aimed to be as broad and inclusive as we can, while also staying within a reasonable logical framework. So, finally, let's answer our original question. What is a theme park? We'll take our park definition, add some aspects about theming, and we're looking pretty good. It still feels slightly incomplete, though. If we repurpose some of the original definitions as language about attractions, as well as our insights about variety, we get our final definition. It's a bit long, but it is fairly comprehensive. We'll do some quick shuffling for clarity and a little more brevity, and we get this. Theme park. A recreational public space with a free flow of pedestrian traffic, utilizing artistic techniques to create the illusion of immersion within a unified setting, featuring several types of attractions such as rides, food, shows, exhibits, and other experiences, often containing lands with their own unique themes. It should go without saying that theme parks are more than a collection of rides, a smattering of smoke and mirrors, or even words on a page. They are a place where we can play with our families and friends, both a repository and generator of memories, and even the most precise definitions will fail to encapsulate how they make us feel. So why waste all this time trying to define theme parks? Painting, poetry, or opera may not interest us, but we appreciate these forms as art, partly because they have a history of academic assessment and analysis. To some, any discussion of a theme park as art will sound like suggesting we hang a toddler's macaroni art in the Guggenheim. To others, talking about theme parks, something fun, in a serious way, will feel like homework. But if we want the rest of the world to appreciate these special, unique places the way we do, and recognize the unique achievements they represent, we need to be able to discuss them in terms similar to other forms of art.